Hey everybody, welcome to POS 273, International Relations. This is an online undergraduate course taught at the University of Maine, and I'm the instructor, Rob Glover. So in this initial video, all I want to do is just kind of run through the syllabus really quickly, talk about what we'll be doing in the course, and where and how to access some of the resources that you'll need for the course. And I understand this is a 6-week session, so you do have to make decisions about whether or not you want to stay in the course pretty quickly. So I want to expose you to what you'll be doing and how we'll be going about this course, and then you can make a decision as to whether or not this is the right course for you. So on the front page of the syllabus here, you have some information about how to contact me. I would say that in the summertime, usually the best way to get in touch with me is through email. You can call my phone, but I'm in and out of the office in the summer. I might not get your message quickly. And then we do have office hours for this course. So through Blackboard, there's a link through to the office hours. And every Wednesday from 12 to 2, I'll be there. I'll be available. You can ask me questions about the course. We can have a conversation. So an overview of the course really is, the course is focused on international relations. It's not so much focused on topics or specific events, what's happening in the world, discretely broken up into various subtopics. What we really focus on in this course is different theoretical and conceptual tools that you can then take with you and use to understand anything that's happening in the world, right? So the goal is to give you the conceptual and analytical tools that you need to understand the behavior of states, war and peace, environmental policy at the global level, all these different issues that are going to be really important in years to come. And that's what we'll be focusing on. But we don't just do theory for the sake of theory. So there will be a lot of focus on theory and then plenty of instances in which we apply the theory. So part of what we'll be doing in here is a simulation in which you take on the role of representatives to different countries before the UN Security Council. And also some of the chapters that you read from the Jennifer Sterling Foker book, they lay out a theory, but then they apply that theory to the Iraq War. So you end up with a bunch of different potential explanations for why the Iraq War happened and why it looked like it did. So that's what we're going to be doing. I think this is a really timely course. It's a good time to be thinking about international relations and how to understand it and also how to predict what will happen in the future. And I think it will also be an enjoyable course. I think this simulation can be a lot of fun, and it's a good way to put into practice some of that more conceptual knowledge that you're going to learn. So in terms of grading and class requirements, I do have a class discussion board on Blackboard, and every week in which you're not actually engaged in that simulation, I pose a question or a series of questions, and you weigh in there with a discussion post, and I'll be grading those discussion posts. You have a midterm and a final exam that you'll be taking through Blackboard. You'll get a study guide in advance, and those are going to be 25% of your grade each. And then there's this icon simulation for which there's a number of different assignments that are all weighted slightly differently. It adds up to about 35% of your total grade. So I'll talk more about that in just a moment. In terms of required readings, we have a number of different texts that I expect you to purchase. They're available for purchase in the campus bookstore, or you can get them online. First is by Jennifer Sterling Foker, called Making Sense of International Relations Theory. What it is a series of chapters in which different analysts look at the Iraq War using different theoretical lenses, right? So we'll be talking about these terms. You'll understand what they mean, but how would a liberal look at international relations theory, and then how would they apply it to the Iraq War? How would a realist do that? How would a constructivist do that? How would a feminist theorist look at that? So it's a really interesting kind of application of theory to a case that hopefully all of you know at least a little bit about. Then we have a book by Daniel Dresner, which is a lot of fun. It's called Theories of International Politics and Zombies, the revised edition, in which he's doing something similar, but he's applying it to zombie fiction, right? So how would realism look at a post-apocalyptic scenario in which zombies were overrunning us? How would a feminist do that? How would a liberal do that? How would a constructivist do that? So you end up with these different applications of the theory, which hopefully enable you to take the theories down to earth and understand how to use and apply them. We also have a book called The United Nations, A Very Short Introduction. And that's mainly just to give you some background and context to prepare you for the simulation of the UN Security Council that you'll be engaged in. So you have some sense of, what the UN is, how it works, and how specifically the UN Security Council works. And then lastly, there's this simulations platform called ICONS, run out of the University of Maryland. And in order to participate in that simulation of the UN Security Council, you have to register through them, and they'll give you access. So once you choose a country, or you identify a country that you might want to represent in that simulation, I can give you a customized link, and then you'll go to their website and sign up. And it's not very expensive. It's about $13. And from my perspective, it's well worth it. So the other stuff here in the syllabus, I'm not going to go through in any great detail, but I do expect you to be familiar with it. So read this closely. It's important, especially for an online class where I'm not there to meet with you in person. I'm not there to remind you of things, that you understand different policies, and you also understand when things are going to be due and what exactly you'll be asked to do in the class. So read this over pretty closely. One thing I would encourage you to look at specifically is the course assignments. Just read through these and make sure that you understand them and what you're going to be asked to do. The simulation in particular, there's a number of different assignments built in there. So there's a pre-negotiation planning report that's really designed to get you up to speed on your country. You have participation in the simulation itself, which is very important. You have to be actively engaged in the simulation. You have to be sending messages back and forth on a regular basis. You have to be there in the final voting phase to actually cast your vote. So I will give you a grade just based on how active you are in the simulation. And this is something I'll say too, that if your summer situation is such that you're not going to be able to check in at least a couple times a day during weeks 4 and 5, it's going to be really hard to actually do well in that portion of the simulation. It tends to move pretty quickly, and if you get a message from a country and you don't respond, then that can hinder your ability to be effective in the simulation. So if it looks like your schedule is going to be such that you have 1 day a week in which you can do the work for this class, then it might not be the best class for you, particularly that simulation component. There's a midpoint report, which is basically you assessing your original strategy at the outset of the simulation and checking in and seeing how things had been working through that first week. And then a final reflection paper in which you look at the entirety of the simulation and you take some of those ideas and conceptual frameworks that we've laid out at the beginning of the course and try to apply them and think about, what actually happened here. Other than that, you have the class schedule, and it's broken down by week, and then the weeks are broken down by modules. So for each one of these modules, you'll have a reading assignment, and then there'll be a lecture video that you're expected to watch. And as I said, for weeks 1, 2, 3, and 6, the weeks in which you're not doing the simulation, there'll be a question posted on the discussion section of the Blackboard page. During those weeks, you would respond to that question. That would be the discussion portion of your grade. You have the date for your midterm and your final exam. The midterm and final exam you will take through Blackboard. And the way that will work is that there'll be a link available starting at midnight and available until the end of the day. Once you open that link, you have, for the midterm, 75 minutes, and for the final exam, 120 minutes to complete the exam. You'll get a study guide in advance, so you know pretty much exactly what's going to be on the exam, what you'll be tested on, and then you complete it. If you go over that limit, you aren't shut out of the exam, but I start to deduct points, and if you go significantly over the deadline, then you lose a significant number of points. So that's basically the syllabus in a nutshell. If there's anything there you don't understand, please let me know. I'm going to hop out of here and go into Blackboard. So all of you should have now in your Blackboard the course POS 273. It should be listed. And then in there's a whole array of material, right? There's the course material, the syllabus, any electronic readings beyond the assigned texts. Assignments and study guides will be there. And you have this opening post from me as well. So class announcements will be in Blackboard. And this would also be where you take exams, post your discussion posts, etc. The only thing that I'm asking you to do this week is to send me an email with the email that you will be regularly checking this summer. And if you have a preference for the icon simulation of a specific country that you would want to represent, send me that preference. And I'll try to match everybody up with their first preference. There's usually a few countries that are in pretty high demand, so you might want to give me a second choice, a third choice, so that I can ensure that you end up with a country that you're actually interested in. The one thing I would note that is relevant for choosing a country is that the UN Security Council has 5 permanent members who have veto power. They do not rotate off of the UN Security Council. And so these countries in particular tend to be pretty coveted roles and responsibilities. There's also a president of the Security Council, that is Japan. They kind of handle the agenda setting, calling for votes, running the end series of negotiations and votes on resolutions that happen. And then you have a remaining number of non-permanent members of the Security Council. So look through those, and if there's one or a handful that seem to be of interest to you, just send me an email with those choices. Send me an email either way so that I have it, so that I can create a class email list and send you out that information. The other thing I would say with Blackboard is just kind of get a sense of where things are and how to navigate around here. The one thing that I wanted to show you before we wrap up is the Icons website. So Icons is run through the University of Maryland. They have constructed a whole series of these simulations in which different individuals play the role of certain actors. And they do this for the private sector, they do it for government, and they do a lot for higher ed. And they've been doing these simulations on international relations for decades. When I was an undergrad, back probably in like 2000, I did one of these icon simulations pretty similar to what you're doing. Ours was on international development, and it was not the Security Council specifically. But I remember doing this assignment through icons. So once you choose a country, and once I assign the final country roles, you'll get a customized link, and that will enable you to sign up for the simulation through icons. And then all of the actual business of the simulation, the informal negotiations, the formal negotiations, and the voting will happen through this icons platform. So I'm going to wrap up there. As I said, if you have any questions or anything that I've laid out is unclear, please feel free to contact me. And also just remember that in this first week, I want you to send me an email from the email that you regularly check. And if you have a preference for the icon simulation, go ahead and send that to me as well. All right, I'm looking forward to this class. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and looking forward to working with all of you. Thanks very much.